Welcome, folks. My name is Harjeet Judge, part of the product management group here in Vancouver. And my team focuses on adoption of new technologies, whether that's BI 4.1, Lumira, Design Studio, Predictive, and so on. So just wanted to do a brief overview of what the semantic layer is that SAP has to offer. So when we were revamping our semantic layer for BI 4.0, we really had two goals in mind. One was to provide a consistent experience to the end users, regardless of the type of business objects clients they were using. So when you're using Web Intelligence or Lumira or Crystal Reports or Design Studio or some of the other client tools that we have, you get that consistent look and feel with the query panel, and that was one of the key requirements that we had when we try to enhance the semantic layer for BI 4.0. And the second goal that we had in mind was to really, and that's a goal in general for semantic layer, is to really expose the data that the companies have in their database and hide all the complexity of the underlying data when you're actually trying to query it. So those are the two common goals that we had in mind. When we are using the Universe semantic layer, we can access a wide variety of data sources, agnostic data sources such as Oracle, SQL Server, Teradata, what have you. And in order to access those data sources, what you do is you actually build universes using the information design tool in BI 4.x. In addition to building universes, you also have the capability to connect to some data sources directly. And what I'm specifically referring to here is the ability to connect to BW-BEX queries from Web Intelligence using the direct access method. And in that scenario, you don't actually have to build the universe yourself. What we do is when you connect to a BEX query from Web Intelligence, we build the universe for you behind the scenes. And one of the advantages of using the direct access method is that the end user also gets the ability to, we actually expose a lot of the hierarchies, a lot of the OLAP type of features using this direct access method. And I know Fred touched on this to some extent already, but with the BI 4.x semantic layer, we also give you the ability to build multi-source universes that let you federate data from multiple relational data sources. And this is the way, like, you can have those data sources defined directly within the universe itself, so you don't actually have to do anything in the front-end client application. So what I'm going to cover is some of the basic features that we added in BI 4.0, BI 4.1 SP6, and these are some of the enhancements that we made to the semantic layer and also to Web Intelligence that leverages the semantic layer quite heavily. So one of the enhancements that we added in the Universe Designer itself is the ability to define dynamic default values for your universe prompts. So when you build your parameters in the Universe Designer, you can actually write expressions to define what the default value for a particular prompt would look like. And you'll be able to leverage that in Web Intelligence. And if you look at the screenshot here, you can see that a very simple expression is just using the current date function to actually pull out, have that being the default value for a particular prompt. And a couple other enhancements was the ability to support multiple HANA input parameters. So if you're looking to build a universe off of a HANA analytical view or a calculation view, and you have an input parameter in those views that's accepting multiple values, we are able to support that now. One of the features that's been asked by a lot of our customers was live office support for UNX Universes. You'd be happy to know that we actually support both UNE and UNX Universes through live office now in BI 4.1 SP6. And just one other thing that I wanted to mention here is that when you're connecting to OLAP sources, and what I'm referring to here is, Microsoft Analysis Services or S-based OLAP. When you're trying to create queries, we actually block the users from creating queries that are not optimal. So if you just drag a dimension object without having a measure in that query, we'll basically prevent the user from doing that. And the reason why we have that functionality added is so that it doesn't cause a crash on the OLAP server. Some additional enhancements to BI 4.1 SP6 in the semantic layer as well as Web Intelligence is we now actually support freehand SQL. So you're able, in Web Intelligence, to write freehand SQL directly going to your underlying data sources. And one of the reasons why we did this was to really close the gap between some of the features that were available in the desktop intelligence application to really support that conversion from Desky to Webby and make it easier for our customers to make that transition. When you use freehand SQL within Web Intelligence, you also have the capability of writing stored procedures as well, so you can execute a stored procedure directly from the freehand SQL script. And just one last enhancement was in Web Intelligence. Again, this is an enhancement made in the semantic layer that the Web Intelligence can leverage, is the ability to cancel queries, so you can get that control back to the Webby clients. So if a user creates a query that's going to take a long time to run, you can actually cancel that query, and then you'll be able to continue on with your report development or doing manipulations in the report directly within the Web Intelligence clients. So those are some of the enhancements that we made to the semantic layer in the F4.1 SV6. Next, I'm going to talk about what the roadmap looks like for the semantic layer. So some of the innovations that we're looking to bring on the semantic layer front is the ability to connect to SAP HANA or the direct access to SAP HANA as well. So today you can build universes off of analytical views or calculation views, but what we're looking to bring is similar functionality as to what you have when you're connecting to BEX queries, where you'll be able to take your Web Intelligence client and connect directly to an underlying calculation view or an analytical view without actually having to create a universe first. So that's going to be a nice enhancement. What Crystal Reports for Enterprise actually does that today, so we're just bringing that functionality for Webby as well. And when you get that, you would also get some of those OLAP features that HANA has, such as hierarchies, similar to what you get with BEX queries today. Second enhancement that we're looking to add, which a lot of our customers ask for as well, is the ability to build universes on top of BEX queries. And the goal there is to really give you the power to hide and rename and group certain BEX query dimensions and measures that you may have, and really take advantage of the features that the universe offers when you're working off any data source, whether it's relational or OLAP. So you'll be able to connect to a BEX query, you'll be able to build a universe on top of that, you'll be able to hide certain dimensions that you don't want to expose to your end users, you'll be able to regroup them, and you'll still be able to leverage the full capabilities or hierarchical capabilities that you get when you access BEX queries through the direct access method. One other enhancement that's planned also is the ability to create linked UNX universes. This was something that was possible if you were using the universe design tool. So you could have one parent universe and build multiple child universes on top of that one main master universe, if you will. So we're bringing that functionality back into the information design tool, so you'll be able to build UNX universes in a similar fashion. And with every release, we continue to add new data sources or support additional data sources for connectivity from the universe tool or from IDT itself. And what we're looking to do is bringing support for additional big data sources such as Apache Spark and so on in the next releases. Let's move on to the next slide. So the long-term roadmap for the semantic layer, again, additional data source support. So we're continuing to add additional data sources as they become available. So that includes support for new releases of the existing data sources that we already support. In addition to that, we're also looking to bring some of the set analysis functionality directly in the information design tool. And set analysis used to be part of the EPM product suite, so it was actually a separate product. And just like Data Federator was a separate product, and we brought a lot of the Data Federator functionality, which lets you build multi-source universes directly into IDT. We're kind of looking to do something similar with the set analysis product as well. That's really taking the use cases that that product offers and integrating them into the information design tool and letting our client tools leverage that off top of the universe. And I believe that's all I had, so I'm going to turn it over to you, Fred, as well to continue on with your presentation.
Great. Thank you, Harjeet. My name is Fred Walther. I'm a Solution Consultant Manager at APOS Systems. APOS has been around since 1992. Our focus is on BI solutions for the SAP BusinessObjects platform. We simplify, automate, extend the BusinessObjects platform. We work with the SDK, and we have hundreds of customers globally that use many of our products in their environments. I want to talk about a few things today. These learning points we'll look at. First of all, the UNX. The metadata layer provides a wealth of capabilities going forward. We used to have the UNV, now we're moving to the UNX, and that brings a lot of new capabilities in many of the different products that are part of the SAP platform, whether it be Crystal Reports or Web Intelligence or Design Studio or whatever the case may be. And the key to executing a successful UNX adoption is planning. So making sure that we plan out the process before we begin. So knowing about our system is key. Understanding how the system is constructed, what's being used, etc., is a big point. We'll talk a little bit about the semantic layer in general, and then we'll also talk about the semantic layer conversion and automating that process. So I mentioned before that the UNX offers many new and exciting features. So things like multi-data source universes, distributed workload of universe design, built-in querying capability in the designer, and many, many other capabilities as well. This screenshot we see being shared right now simply gives you an idea of some of the design components that are part of the UNX designer. So if we back up half a step and take a look at the old workflow for UNV universes. So we had one connection that was available, and that connection allowed access to the required tables, obviously. The columns from the tables are used to create your universe objects, and then the objects are organized into classes. And it's pretty straightforward stuff. And now when we move to the UNX, though, things are a little bit different. First of all, at the top of the hierarchy, we have a project. And the project is simply a way to organize your universes. And it's like a container. Then we have our connection, or connections, because we can have multiples. And connections are going to define the way that the communication is made to the databases that you're utilizing. Connections can now be stored in connection folders to help organize them. And of course, a universe can be made up of multiple connections, as we've mentioned. Next is the data foundation. And the data foundation is where, of course, the linking of the database tables takes place. Lists of values and parameters can be created here. Calculated columns, something new, can be created here as well. For example, you might want to take a unit price column and multiply it by the quantity sold column to create an extended price and make that part of your universe. Anything that you create at the data foundation level is going to be inherited by any business layer that's created that's based upon this foundation. And you can create families of tables to help visually identify any related tables. Then we have the business layer itself. The business layer provides the ability to create a unique view of the universe, utilizing specific folders or classes and their objects. List of values parameters can be created here. So these lists of values and parameters that are here are going to be unique to that particular business layer. And we can also create queries and save those queries with the business layer so that we have access to them again. Folders, new content name for an old type, used to be called classes. And you actually see that most of the reference to classes is going to be called folders, but you'll still see classes in some documentation. It will still say classes. And then we have our objects, and those are the same as they were in UNVs. Detail objects are now called attributes. So there are some differences in universe design, but most of it is going to be very familiar. So if we look at this just a little bit differently, you can see the differences between the UNV and the UNX. In the UNV world, one connection can be utilized by many universes, UNV universes, but there can be one and only one connection per universe. In the UNX world, one connection can still be used by many UNXs, but there's also the possibility of having many database layers, business layers, based upon that one foundation. And the new wrinkle here is that the foundation is able to have multiple connections, each connecting to a different database or even a different type of database. So combining Oracle, SQL Server, Sybase, Informix, whatever, all together into one universe is possible to do. There are a couple of things that we have to be aware of in terms of security settings. So in the Central Management Console, we want to go to the Applications area, IDT, and User Security. And three that I'm concerned with, I'll speak about here this morning. One is the Administer Security Profiles. So this is going to be required for the ability to create profiles in the UNX. Compute statistics. That's another security setting we're going to have on that's going to be required if we're going to be using multiple connection UNXs. And then finally, share projects. This is going to be required for sharing and syncing layers after you publish a project. So just to be aware of some of the security changes you might not think about right away will have to be addressed. So as we've seen, there are some changes in the structure of the UNXs, and now we want to look at some of the new capabilities and some of the new opportunities. First and foremost, multi-data source capabilities. The ability to combine data from different data sources is something that has been looked for a long time by a lot of people. So disparate data sources, as I mentioned, Oracle, SQL Server, Teradata, et cetera, can all be combined in one universe. There is now a new design SDK, so the ability to modify universe design programmatically. This opens up many areas and makes it a much more flexible and agile solution. There's also a new consumption SDK, so this will allow developers to control the manner in which the data is used by the report. So a lot of good opportunities here with the capabilities. Opportunities open up for UNXs. BI dashboards, aka Excelsius. So in Excelsius, some of the components can consume the query directly. So consuming the query from a UNX directly without needing to populate cells in the spreadsheet. So you may not need or want to use query as a web service. Looking at Design Studio, which is going to be the face of dashboards going forward, they can consume a UNX query in a familiar interface, much like the Web Query Designer. Lumira, data sets can be created from UNX universes. Crystal Reports for Enterprise, the new face of Crystal Reports, as it becomes more mature, people will use it more, and it is able to consume the same kinds of data sources that Crystal Reports 2011-2013, the standard, can connect to, but it will also be able to connect to UNX universes. Now, out of the box, Crystal Reports for Enterprise will not be able to consume UNV universes, and we'll talk a little bit more about that a little bit later on. In terms of distribution of workload, we can have different team members working on different aspects of the UNX. So someone might be responsible for connections in the foundation, others are designing different business layers, and of course we can have multiple business layers connecting to the same data foundation. And so those different business layers will be looking at different aspects of the business. And SAP has indicated there will be no more new development on UNVs, so UNX is going to be the face of the metadata layer going forward. There are, of course, some challenges. There are always challenges when we move to a new anything, but of course in the semantic layer there are some challenges, and a couple of those are listed here. First of all, there's currently no support for linked universes. Now, I understand that that is going to be changing in the near future, so keep that in the back of your mind. One of the other things that if you're using multiple data sources, we're forced into using ANSI 92 standard SQL. So we've got the data federator layer there to work with, and so if you're utilizing any custom SQL that's unique to that database type, for example in joins, etc., you're going to be forced to use ANSI 92 standard. So you do have to be aware of that when you start creating the universe. When you create a universe, you have the choice at that point, when you're creating a new UNX, to decide, am I going to make this a multi-source universe, or am I going to make it a single-source universe? And you can't change your mind later on. Once you've started the design process, that's what it is. So you just have to bear that in mind when you're starting. A couple other challenges. Not all UNV universes can migrate to be a UNX. So there's no capability of taking an OLAP universe and converting that. You can't convert a stored procedure universe. Universes, UNVs that are based upon data federator cannot be converted. A couple other things, queries of web service, live office, Crystal Reports 2011-13 connect to UNV only, and as I mentioned, we'll talk a little bit about that in a while. A couple of slides. So here are just a brief synopsis of the content types and the universe types that are supported by those. So we see here Webby supporting both UNV, UNX. Crystal Reports 2011-13, as I mentioned, UNV out of the box. Crystal Reports for Enterprise, UNX only out of the box. SAP Dashboard, that is Excelsius, utilizing UNV through Quaz, UNX support. Design Studio, again, out of the box is only UNX, and of course Lumira, Explorer, Live Office, and the others as well. Now I mentioned that out of the box, the others didn't support that type. So for example, Crystal Reports 2011-13 natively won't connect to UNX, but through the APOS Semantic data driver, we can connect Crystal Reports 2011-13 to a UNX, or Crystal Reports for Enterprise to a UNV. Also, Design Studio can consume not only UNX natively, but also through the Semantic data driver can consume a UNV universe as well. So there are some ways around some of the possible limitations for connection. Talk a little bit about maintenance tips for UNX, and of course these relate back to UNVs as well. A lot of these are just common sense, but sometimes common sense isn't that common. So just a good idea to reiterate some of these topics. So all metadata, that is class names, object names, should use business terminology. And that seems, as I said, one of those things that's just common sense. But as a designer, sometimes you're caught up in your world and you're utilizing database names and database things that make sense to you as a DBA, et cetera, that aren't going to help the end users. Whereas if we use everything in business terminology that the end users, the consumers of these reports are going to understand, of course, that's going to make it much, much easier for them. Reusing business logic, rather. So again, we want to make sure that we're creating everything from the end user perspective. And it's easy to lose focus on that, but it's something that should be kept in mind all the time, that this is for the end users. Create everything as if you were an end user. And again, avoid creating the same object as a measure and a dimension, unless the distinction is well known to the end user. Things like setting the formatting for date and currency field. If you set that at the universe level, it's going to make life easier for the end users. And will ensure consistency in the look and the feel of the report. They won't have to be formatting fields. It'll already be taken care of for them. After you find out what the user community wants for the reports, then you can create hierarchies and the naming convention. You can create that. So, and rather than having the end users respond negatively to the way you designed the universe and having to go back and change it, having their input on the front end of the design makes them happier and makes your job easier in the long run. Avoiding freestanding tables, or at least having freestanding tables visible to the end user in a business layer, could result perhaps in Cartesian joins if a user includes objects from a derived table and other tables and joins those together if they don't know. So perhaps we're looking here at having separate business layers that you utilize the freestanding tables and not including them in a business layer that also includes other tables as well. Things like left-outer joins, avoiding left-outer joins whenever possible because they can be tricky. You can get different result sets depending if a user starts filtering based on objects from both sides of a join. So some resources for UNX design. There are some great resources out there. The SAP video tutorial series, there are a lot of pieces of good information in these. So have a look at all those. Also the comprehensive guide from SAP Press, again, a very good resource for you. And I would recommend that you make use of these resources to make life easier when you move to UNXs. So speaking about moving ahead to UNXs, we now know a little bit about the UNX. We've got three choices as how to proceed with our semantic layer on the BI 4.1 platform. One choice in that might be to stay fully on UNVs and decide that, you know what, I don't want to move to UNXs, I just want to stay where I am. And that has some pluses and minuses, right? Obviously there's no immediate action required. The downside is you're falling behind. It's not current technology. And you're missing out on many opportunities with the new capabilities that are inherent in UNXs. So while it is a possibility, and it might be the only option for some people that are locked into using an OEM version, perhaps, of BOE, probably not a viable solution for very long. The second option might be to move fully to UNX and just rip the Band-Aid off and just say, today we're in UNXs. Well, that's good. We've got some good and some bad and some ugly here. The good is we're current, immediately current with the new technology. The bad might be, well, we need to retrain all of our support staff, everybody who's designing. Everybody has to update their skill sets right away. And then, of course, the ugly side of this is that you've got to immediately repoint all of your current Webby reports to their new UNX equivalents. So that cutting the cord or ripping the Band-Aid off and going directly to UNX, maybe not so good either. And probably a more logical choice, more realistic approach to this is to run both UNV and UNXs at the same time. Any new development, of course, would be done on UNXs. You've got a transition phase then. You're getting exposure to UNXs. You're retaining your current UNVs to start with. And you're moving in more of let's say a small baby steps approach where we're getting to understand the new nuances of the UNX design, but we don't have to, rip the Band-Aid off immediately. There are some downsides to this, of course. We've got two tool sets to work with, two different skill sets. We've got double the testing, maintenance, and documentation because we have two semantic layers. But it's a relatively short-term pain for really long-term gain. So we would see this to be the logical approach is to slowly migrate your content from the UNV into UNXs. New development is all going to take place in UNXs and simply move forward in that way. So those three choices of staying fully on UNV, moving fully to UNX, or the third one, running both UNV and UNX, and making that slow, steady progress to the new semantic layer. So at APOS, we've developed an automated conversion solution that is going to help in a number of ways to make that move from UNV to UNX. If you have a large number of UNV universes, converting them into UNXs can be a time-consuming process. So we allow selecting of UNVs in bulk and automating the conversion process from UNV to UNX. Now, once you have the UNX universes, the hard part begins. It's repointing all of your existing Webby reports from the old UNVs to the new UNXs. Well, happily, this step is also automated so that you can easily work on hundreds of Webby reports at once, saving valuable time and energy. We've spoken to a lot of clients over the last 18 to 24 months talking about repointing of Web Intelligence documents, and people have given us estimates anywhere from 10 minutes to an hour to convert one report from a UNV universe to repoint it to a new UNX universe. And of course that's dependent upon how many data sources that particular Webby report might have, how many data providers are involved, and so forth. But being able to automate this process and log any conversion issues that might have arisen during that process, it's a time saver for you. Just to take a look at some of the screenshots of this particular tool that helps automate the conversion process. First of all, we want to search for the Web Intelligence reports we want to work with. So searching for them by their name, the location, the owner of these reports, or the universe that they consume. Once we've selected the reports that we want to work with, we put them into a project. And the project is going to help us logically organize the Webby reports that are being worked on. And of course, we can work on this by business unit or whatever is a logical way of working on it for you. And using the different projects can help us keep this organized and streamlined. The next screen here, we're looking at the possibility of bringing in the UNV to UNX conversion as part of the repointing process. So you may well have your UNXs created already, or you may not have them created, so we can convert the UNV to UNX as part of the repointing process to bring everything into one process. And of course, Webby reports are going to have one or many data providers, and all of them would be listed here, and you simply choose the target that you'd like to associate with the original source. The next tab on this screen shows us that the Webbies are going to be copied to a temporary location for processing. And after the processing is complete, then we will get a status screen that is going to display the success of the operation. And of course, a log file, as I mentioned, is generated, giving us all the documentation about which reports we've converted and any possible problems we may have encountered along the way. And then as the final step, or next to final, is validating the data. So validating the content of these reports prior to the conversion process and after conversion process, looking to ensure that we've got the same kinds of data. And then the final step is to commit the Webby reports that we've converted back to the system, either telling the system use the copies of the Webbies, or telling the system to take the copies of the Webbies and reapply that to the original so that we retain the same document CUIDs and IDs and names, etc. So that, and of course we want to make sure we've backed everything up, so we'll create a rollback capability here that allows us to roll things back should anything go wrong in the process. So this automated conversion is going to save us hours and perhaps days of time for each set of Webby reports that we're converting. So best practices in terms of moving to the new semantic layer. Well, we want to foster a new understanding of the UNX workflows, making sure that everybody understands how these UNXs are working, what the benefits of these UNXs are, the capabilities they're going to bring us. We want to be able to automate the conversion and validation process so that we save our valuable time and energy. And we want to have a plan in place that's going to meet our organization's specific needs. And as I said, it's tempting in some ways to sort of rip that Band-Aid off and say, yep, yesterday we were on UNVs, today we're on UNXs, but more logically you want to have a plan in place. And we start with this particular area or business unit of our organization and move them. And then, of course, it's an iterative process. As each business unit is migrated and converted from one semantic layer to the new UNXs, then we'll learn things, and we'll be able to apply those things that we've learned to the next one that we move to. So it's that planning that is key to the whole process. The new UNX presents opportunities to work with some of the newer SAP solutions, and thinking here of Lumira and Design Studio especially, and all of the other capabilities that are part of the new BI4X platform. And just a reminder that moving from UNV to UNX, it presents some challenges, yes, but none of these are really insurmountable. They can be overcome. And again, just to reiterate that planning is key. We want to make sure we have a good plan in place and validate this plan with everybody involved so that there are no surprises, that everybody has a stake in this and it will be successful. We do have a full suite of solutions for simplifying the management of your business intelligence system. Today we looked at the Webby Migrator. That's part of our Adoption Accelerator group. We also talked a little bit about Data Gateway and the Semantic data driver. So having a data driver that will communicate directly to the semantic layer. And that, of course, is the capability that lets us use UNVs with Crystal Reports for enterprise, or UNXs with Crystal Report Standard. And all those kinds of capabilities that out of the box you don't have, but we can provide that with a Semantic data driver. And again, the Data Gateway allowing Design Studio and Lumira to connect to Web Intelligence documents for their data source.